Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to Book Ramble. If you're new here, welcome. So nice that you. Hello, welcome to Book Ramble. I'm Mark. If you've come for the first time, thank you very much. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. You are wonderful people. I've just recorded Plato's The Apology. Last night, my wife, which in Cockney rhyming slang would be trouble and strife, but she's not. She said, "Oh, would you want your book back then if you're doing books now? Do you want to read it or talk about it?" I said, "What book's that?" And she gave it to me. Wonderful. I forgot I had it. I bought it so long ago. She wanted to read it, and I forgot. It went into the mists of time. Beautifully done. And surprisingly, because you see this really in depth. And this obviously is not going to be a channel just to philosophy, but it is a subject matter that I love. And I've done The Apology and I'll do other philosophy books as well. So I thought, right, rather than talking about this one in one massive go, I'll just do separate things just to talk to air. So I apologise because it's not a book in itself. So I'm going to mention right now Rene Descartes and his famous Cogito Ergo Sum. But you need to go and look at the book if you want the proper source or original book. But this one, does anything exist beyond the self? And it's in the modern world, this I think has more understanding with people than most philosophy because of the Matrix and Inception. How do we know that we exist? And what it does here, it talks about the brain ourselves, a brain in a vat. What if we found out that we were brains kept sentient in a vat, and that everything that we think we know isn't? And there's that great scene in The Matrix where, I forget who he is the guy who, warning here, this is going to be revealed. There's a character who's on the ship who betrays them, and we see him having a steak, and Smith, the one who's trying to get them, he sat there and he's eating his steak and he said, I know it's not real, but it's wonderful. Make sure I don't remember anything. He wants to be in the Matrix and all the things that we enjoy, food and drink. But the philosophical question, and I know this annoys a lot of people, I've taught students in the UK, it was a boys' grammar school, philosophy. And I remember some of them, because of, I suppose they were left brain dominant, thought this is ridiculous, Anyway, how do we know that we're not being duped? How do we know that we exist? Because everything around us is perceived by our senses. But we know a lot of stuff that we perceive isn't. I mean, for instance, as I've said recently on another video, what about love? How many cups of love can you get? How could you measure hope and forgiveness? You can't, but we know they exist, but they're not concrete, they're not physical. You can't physically touch them, see them. So if there's a lot of stuff that we accept as being real, but we can't see them, then how do we know what we can touch because of optical illusions? How do we know that they're not real? So I'm looking out my window and I see a Nico palm. And I think that's been like that a week ago, but it's not. It's grown a little bit more. One of the, I don't know what you call them, the spikes probably has fallen off in the meantime. It's not the same as it was yesterday. So why do I think it is? And it's stuck in reality when plainly there are things that change. And what came in with a guy called René Descartes, which is French for René from Carte, so it's Cartesian doubt. He said, how do I know that I exist? And he eventually came to the premise, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. I know I exist because I'm thinking that question. To think the question, therefore, means I must exist. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And it's been a very powerful answer to that question that flummoxed us as a species for centuries. Still does. George Berkeley came along later and he said, any physical thing exists only when it is perceived through the senses. Esse est percipi. To be is to be perceived. But that's a form of solipsism, that we're alone. Everything is just us. And if we don't perceive it, therefore it doesn't exist. That's called solipsism. It's just me. Existence is mind dependent. So, are you real? Do things happen to me because they're real, or is it I'm imagining them? Is there a world, or are we just atoms floating around convincing ourselves that we are real? Fascinating topic. And again, just to finish off, it's like time. Does time exist? When is it noon in outer space? Why do we have 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours? Actually, the answer to that is because the ancients counted in base 12, not base 10. So on your fingers, you've got 3 digits. And with your thumb, as the count, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can count to 12 on one hand, 24 on 2. And every time I count to 12, I put up a thumb here, 12, another 12, 24, another 12, 36, 48, 60. That's why we have 60 as a special number. The ancients could count to that quite independently. And it happens to fit in with mathematics, a circle, and the revolving of the Earth. We've abandoned that to base 10. So how do we know numbers are correct? If 1 plus 1 equals 2, could 1 plus 1 equal 1? Potentially, yes. One piece of clay, you mix them together and you have one piece of clay. It doesn't talk about scope or size or density. So we convince ourselves we know, but do we? How do we know? Fascinating subject. What I find it fascinating, you may have switched off and it's back. But anyway, great book. Love it. I'll talk about some more later in another episode. Until then.